Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to bring to you Lenora Edwards. And let me tell you about Lenora. Lenora Edwards is a TEDx speaker, board-certified speech language pathologist, and the Chief Knowledge Officer of Better Speech. And this is a dynamic force in the field of communication. With additional certifications in neuro-linguistic programming, holographic memory resolution, and over 15 years of clinical experience, Lenora's expertise spans child language development, parent-child interaction, effective workplace communication, the art of communication within the mind and body, and more. Lenora guides people to unlock their authentic space, authentic voice, navigate their inner dialogue, and communicate with clarity and confidence in every aspect of life. So we're going to talk about communication across the ages. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Lenora Edwards. Lenora, so great to have you on. I love what you do, and I think it's so important. Before we get into all of that, let's just ask you two simple questions. First, where do you call home? Where do you live right now?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Vicki. I'm so glad to be here with you. And I call home. Currently, I reside in the great state of Pennsylvania. And I grew up in New York and New Jersey.
Excellent. You're talking to a Pittsburgh girl.
There you go.
So what is your backstory? What really took you on this journey to do what you do today? What was that moment in your life that said that this is how you wanted to impact and be able to make your mark in the world?
I had always loved communication. I always was a very talkative person. And something that I initially started out doing was nursing.
Oh,
And when I was in undergraduate, I did 2 years of a nursing program. And as much as I enjoyed the sciences, there was just something that wasn't quite clicking. And so I took myself right over to the next building and I took my very first class in sign language. When at that time, one of the things that we would take classes in was in the communication sciences and disorders program was sign language. And I absolutely loved that class. And I just went right on from there and picked up all the classes that I could in communication sciences and disorders, which ultimately translates to a degree in speech language pathology.
awesome. So the first time I had interaction with a speech pathologist was during my years of traveling back and forth from the US to Canada to launch the UPS store in Canada. One of the benefits of that was I flew to Buffalo and then drove down to see my godson, who had been just born at that time. And so he was probably about 4 or 5 months old. I guess he was about 8 or 10 months old. Anyway, I noticed that he wasn't communicating as much as I expected. I had 2 of my own kids, and I also had been doing a nursery for infants to 3-year-olds for about 10 years. And so, not to scare my sister-in-law, but I just said, there's certain things that we should try, because I thought maybe he was deaf.
Hmm.
And I have a nephew who's deaf and does sign language and all those
Yeah.
things. And so,
Oh.
um, luckily, where they lived was way back in the country in the Allegheny Mountains. And they said, well, we have services that you can get. And so we had a speech pathologist came to the house starting at that very, very young age. And she did weekly visits till he was about 3. It was
Wow.
fantastic because he ended up being autistic.
Hmm.
But because he had that intervention so early, he now is, he's always been able to assimilate into schools. And yes, he had his issues with being black and white and
Hmm.
all those things, but he's doing well in college. He is in Dean's List all the time. So it was such a success story. And I just always now still, whenever I work with kids, look for those signs where maybe someone like you could help them.
I love that you shared that. That was such a great story. And I especially love that your sister in law at the time was receptive to it.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of the time we see little ones, and if you're not the professional that's coming in to offer insights, offer suggestions, family can really take it very personally.
Hmm.
And it's so heartbreaking when that happens because not only might there something truly be a red flag saying, hey, this little one just isn't quite communicating, I'm noticing some things, but also it strains the relationship. So I'm so happy to hear that you had a good experience
Yeah,
sharing your knowledge with your loved ones. That made a massive, massive shift in that child's life also, because it's not always easy to be the brave one to speak up and to
yeah.
say, this is what I'm noticing. Even as a mother to a mother, this is what I'm noticing. I have some concerns. So, wow, that was huge that you did that.
Yeah, because I think it was just that she trusted me so much, and she had no experience with babies, so she had no idea. And
Yeah.
but I know in the nursery it's very difficult because nobody wants to say that their child has anything different or wrong
Hmm.
or has challenges. But early intervention is just so important.
It's so helpful too, especially because the nice thing is to new parents, even if you don't have somebody else who happens to have children in your life, being able to turn to intervention, which is a wonderful thing that exists in every single state. You call up your local school system, your local county, and say, I have concerns about my child. And early intervention, for those who aren't quite sure, early intervention is a service that is provided through the state and it offers speech therapy, physical therapy, and occupational therapy
Mhm.
and additional support to children from the age of birth to 3 years of age. So the fact that they even came to your home where the child is the most comfortable and they were
Yeah.
able to engage and provide that care, absolutely amazing. And I love that it is an option to have
Hmm.
in this country.
Yeah. And the cool thing was, he was a little bit OCD, and he didn't like wet grass.
Mhm.
And the fact that she could see him in his natural environment, his day-to-day actions and everything, I think that was also very helpful.
Definitely. And also something that's a great thing is the clinician that comes in, they get to work with the child, but also with the family.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we do at Better Speech, so we provide speech therapy services to individuals of all ages. And my youngest right now is actually 2 years old. And we provide services online. So, what does that look like? That looks like us participating in a Zoom call. So, they get to see my face, they see my office. We're very, very active, just like FaceTime. And just like in early intervention, you're where the child is most comfortable. And a massive help is that the family is there to be engaged. Sometimes when we
Hmm.
have outpatient, and even during the height of COVID, when children would go for outpatient services, parent and guardian weren't necessarily allowed into that therapy room or allowed through the observation room because of all the precautions. So, parent and guardian missed out on all the information that the
Hmm.
clinician was sharing, what they're doing, why they're doing it, how to implement it at home. And when you have early intervention coming in, you have that ability to be right there with them. Or even when we do online therapy, we're right there in that space that they're most comfortable. And we get to talk with the parent or the guardian and teach them how to implement, how to support their loved one, how to help them get from where they are to where they want to go.
Yeah, that's reinforcement of that training and understanding, I think, was so important. And my sister-in-law ended up, now she goes as a um, paraprofessional and helps in the schools with autistic kids and special
Or
need kids. So that sort of changed a life. And even in the speech in my business with the students, I will have the parents and the teachers, when I go into the schools, I'll have the teachers do 3 sessions just so that they see this is what I'm going to be teaching the kids, so that they will reinforce it when I'm gone as well.
Absolutely. And I love the ability to, whether it's quite literally old school where you would record the therapy session, or now online where you have the ability to
Yeah.
record. The nice thing is that it gets to teach people after you leave. And especially when you're one-on-one with somebody or you're in a therapy session, there's so much information coming at the person that's receiving therapy, or the parent or guardian that's on the receiving end of therapy, that at the end of the session they'll go, oh, what did they say? Oh, I forgot what happened. And having the ability to go back to the recording is huge,
Mm.
because that way you don't have to worry. You know for sure you can be fully present. You don't have to take notes. You can go back to the recording and see what was going on. And even in that moment, ask your questions. And if you don't retain all the information, it's okay. You get to go back to the recording. It makes a huge difference.
What other challenges do the adults face with speech and communications that differ from those encountered by the children, and how do you tailor the approach to meet these varying needs?
That's a beautiful question. So, a lot of the time when people hear, oh, you're a speech therapist, they'll go, how's my speech? And they're really focused on the intelligibility, the sharpness, or the clarity of their speech. And absolutely, that is something that we focus on. We work with children, helping them go from wed to red or wabbit to rabbit completely when it comes to articulation. But a lot of the time, what I share with people is that as a speech pathologist, we work from the neck and up. So really, we see individuals for swallowing. So
Mm.
in some cases, we work with adults that might have laryngeal cancer or throat cancer, or difficulty with their voice, where their vocal cords, they might post cold or post situation, might have a really hoarse voice, and they can't get their voice to sound like it used to. One
Mhm.
of the experiences that I had was, I was so still a speech pathologist, but I went into the NICU, the neonatal intensive care
Mhm.
unit. And you might be thinking, why is a speech therapist with newborns?
The
And what we would
bottle
work on,
sucking.
yeah, suck, swallow, breathe. We would work
Yeah.
on their coordination. We would work on their ability to effectively suckle and to effectively hold the pacifier in their mouth in a rhythm where they could breathe. Also, as they were receiving nutrition, some little ones are not born with the capability to safely consume nutrition, to safely consume breast milk. And it's important that we reduce their risk for going into their lungs if they're taking nutrition orally. Other things that we would work on is some individuals are born with cerebral palsy, or they might have difficulty coordinating their oral motor skills. So,
Mm.
what might that look like? They might be drooling. They might have oral motor weakness where their lips are weak, their tongue might be weak, their breathing might be weak. We work with individuals on that. And then as we progress upwards, we'll also work with language, as in helping people better understand information. Can they follow two-step commands? Can they follow three-step commands? And then also express information. Are they able to make a grammatically correct sentence? Can they communicate their wants and their needs? And a lot of the time with adults, as they have their language skills, we might work on things like memory. We might work
Mm.
on things such as, we work with individuals who have dementia or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, traumatic brain injuries, individuals who are post stroke. So we really do work from the neck and up.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that, because it really does give more of an insight to exactly what you do, because people might think, well, you just help someone that doesn't speak well.
Hmm.
My niece had issues with her tongue,
Hmm.
and it was one of those things where she had to work with a speech pathologist so that she would be able to pronounce words properly, because that tongue was not doing what it needed to do.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, in what ways has technology really advanced your practice?
When
And
it
what tools are there out there that you use or that the parents could use?
Technology has been such an interesting piece. And initially, when I first started, so I graduated back in 2009. And yes, absolutely. There were apps at the time. I used an iPad early on. And I also used a lot of toys, a lot of cards, a lot of very engaging things when we would come and interact with children. So that being said, now that I'm completely online, the fact that Zoom exists is
Yes.
incredible
Yeah.
because as a clinician, so I am what you would consider board certified by the American Speech, Hearing, and Language Association. And I'm also licensed by the state. So, as I mentioned earlier, I live in the great state of Pennsylvania. I am also licensed in 5 and 6 other states. So, I have clients out in Washington. I have clients out in Texas. I have clients in Florida because I'm licensed in different states. The reason technology has been so phenomenally beneficial to so many people is because I live, as I said, in one state. I have clients clear across the US that I would have never had
Yeah.
because I didn't live there. And another thing is to take into consideration, a lot of the time I get the question of, is online therapy better than in person therapy? And I truly say it always comes down to the individual.
Hmm.
What is best for that individual? If you're driving 45 minutes to get to an outpatient clinic after a school day, so you might not get to your therapy appointment until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon for your 5-year-old to receive speech therapy services in a completely different place than they're comfortable in, they might be fried. They might not have the best therapy session. You're hoping that it's going to be a good therapy session, but really,
Yeah.
you don't know. The fact that we have the ability to now be online, and especially with better speech, you get to coordinate with your clinician as your schedule works best for you. And that's really important because I see little ones bright and early, first thing in the morning when they're engaged. I don't see them at the end of the day at 4 o'clock when they're fried and they're ready for a break. That's a really, really different circumstance because they're wanting to be there. They're ready to play. They're bright and rested and ready to engage. Whereas at the end of the day, maybe not so much. So having technology and using it to your advantage really helps. And one thing that you had asked was, how do we keep them engaged? What kind of games are there? What kind of support is there? At Better Speech, we have our own platform that we engage with, as in, we have tons of games for our clients so that we share the screen and we go back and forth. We take turns, we play games. Also, once therapy is done for the day, after they have their recording and we've accomplished our task, they get to replay the recording, but also they still have access to the platform. So they get to practice in between
Yeah.
sessions. They get to continue to build their skills. And something that's very interesting as we're seeing AI recently evolve, we now have a tool with Better Speech and it's called Jessica. And it's a speech practice companion so that individuals can practice very specifically. In this case, it's an articulation tool that they can practice saying their sounds. And the technology, the companion, will give them real time feedback as to how that sounded. How clear
Hmm.
was it? And ultimately, that's a great thing because we have control over what sounds to target. We have control as the clinician over, are they using the tool? Are they able to practice? Can they get on easily? And then what's their progress? I'll see little ones that are maybe 8, 9 years old, and I'll say, "Oh, did you get time to practice?" They'll say, "No, mommy or daddy didn't have time to practice with me." So then they're missing out. In this case, we now have a practice companion, so we can set individuals up. They can pop on and make sure they get their practice in so that our sessions are that much more impactful.
And I think it's really important to point out that, our kids are more technology savvy than ever. My 5-year-old and now 9-year-old grandsons are so comfortable with that. And really gamification of learning is the way to go. It was interesting probably 10 years ago whenever I was training at the UPS, we were looking at how can we have our workforce, especially those in the field, be able to get through training and do it in a way that they were not drudging through it and not wanting to do it. And gamification really was the key.
Huge.
And so I think that the more that we do stuff like this, it will make those children that need that time, that practice time, be willing and wanting to do it. This is fun, and the
Very much so.
creativity.
Very much so. And I remember thinking, especially when I grew up in the 90s, we would have to sit down and study and use our flashcards. And this way, you're right, gamification. I love that word. I often forget it. I stick with edutainment. And gamification, really making it interactive, truly
Hmm.
lights up the brain differently so that people are quite literally motivated differently to engage. And that's a wonderful thing. We want individuals effectively communicating, we want them engaged, especially because sometimes technology can be very, very passive. We could just watch a movie or we could just scroll for days. That's really passive. But when we interact with it, it's a different way, it's a different world.
Yeah. And you talked about the fact that you work with older patients, either Alzheimer's or those that are just starting to lose their memory. And I taught my mom how to use a computer when she was probably 70, 80 years old. And it was rough at the beginning, how to turn on my machine's not working right. Well, you have to turn it on.
Mhm.
I don't know how
Yeah,
to turn it on. So once we got through that, but my mom uses the computer all the time now for puzzles and different things that really keep her mind a little sharp. And
that's
and I think
great.
I think that, so just like the little kids, this is allowing you though that those older patients can't always get to you as easily. They may not drive or whatnot. And so if you could zoom into them and be able to every day just do a little thing to sharpen their focus, that would be fantastic.
Very much so. And even if you think about when we first had AOL and dial up, you had to turn the computer on, you had to find the internet, you had to find the icon, you had to hear the
Mhm.
over the wavelengths. You had to wait 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Now, when we join a meeting, it's literally press a button that says join, or you can think about FaceTime, how easy it is to
yeah.
FaceTime. It's literally like answering a call. So thankfully, the technology has advanced. Connecting with other people has gotten simpler in the, oh, it's just as easy as picking up the phone or swiping the button.
And I think when you think of communication, one of the areas that sometimes hampers your communication is that isolation that people feel, the loneliness of someone being the only one in the house, type of thing. And that for COVID, that really is one of the things that propelled me to do the podcast, because I would reach
Mm.
out to elderly people and try to communicate with them so that their social skills were kept up and they didn't have that feeling of isolation or loneliness.
Yeah.
Because people will, once you get into that, this is just me on my own, I'm by myself, their social skills, their communication skills do go down.
And it's heartbreaking. And I love that you brought that point up. There are so many things that happened during COVID. And one of them, so my grandmother, she is 94 right now. And when COVID occurred, she had just turned 90 or just turned 89. I'm losing track of years at this point. And I had sent her, she did not, she was very much into the telephone. And she was a woman that had now lived by herself. Her husband had passed some 20 plus years prior to that.
Mm.
She was social butterfly. She would go out and play cards. She had her, what she called her job, and she would volunteer. every Tuesday she was doing something with veterans. She would go to dances. She was just very, very social. And when COVID happened, as everybody knows, everybody had to isolate. And you could just hear in her voice the shift. And I had sent her via UPS my iPad, and I printed out directions and I step by step. And I had been there probably earlier that summer. So I knew the iPad would connect to her internet. And I sent her step by step instructions. And I said, okay, we're going to be on the phone. And we spent time going on the phone. And so that how to turn it on, how to swipe up, how to hit the settings
Mm,
button, what it looked like, so that we set her up so that we could FaceTime.
yeah,
And the literal life engagement in her eyes and in her voice that
absolutely.
came back, because now she would not only did she FaceTime me, I have 7 other female cousins that she would FaceTime with, and she would FaceTime with her sons, and they would play games. They had
Yeah.
Christmas dinner together on an iPad. That's a huge, huge, huge social
Mhm.
quality of life impact. And it is the difference that truly helped people get through that very difficult time of feeling so alone.
Awesome. So before we end, can you just highlight what the mission of Better Speech
Mhm.
is, and additionally how it aims to transform the traditional speech therapy practices to what you offer today?
Our mission at Better Speech is to provide effective communication skills and effective speech therapy services all across the world. So we do our best to ensure that not only are we providing high quality services, but also that they're affordable, because we truly want every single person to have their voice and to feel like they can effectively communicate to other people. And that is a beautiful mission that I love to be a part of every single day.
Oh, so fantastic. All right. So it's time now for me to share my screen that has the contact information for
Mhm.
Lenora. If you have enjoyed this conversation and really want to connect with her, ask questions, or just see how maybe she might be able to help you, I'm going to ask that those that are just listening go running get a paper and pencil. I will
Mhm.
read the information, but of course, always the information will be in my show notes on my YouTube channel, Vicky Netling. So please do subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com. So again, the website is betterspeech.com. Again, that's betterspeech.com. Facebook is Your Better Speech, and LinkedIn is Better Dash Speech. Instagram is Better Speech. YouTube is at Better Dot Speech, and TikTok is at Better Dot Speech. I'm going to turn it over to Lenora to talk to you about her call to action, things that you can find when you go to her website, any resources and links, as well as some of the places that she spends the most time on that social media platform. Go ahead.
On our website on betterspeech.com, you can find articles and blogs of all sorts, whether you're looking for more information on articulation difficulties, on how to help your child, on what to do if you can't find your words. We have so much information on there for you, completely free. And the beautiful thing is that if you would like to speak with a board certified speech language pathologist, you can do so immediately. Simply visit betterspeech.com, and we will absolutely reach out to you right after you sign up, and we will go from there. And one thing that I really love to point out is we do our best to provide services all across the world. So if you are waiting to speak with a speech language pathologist at an outpatient clinic and you hear that, oh gosh, you have 6 months to wait prior to that evaluation, at Better Speech, that's not the case. You can actually reach out to us today and speak with a board certified speech language pathologist immediately. So if you have questions about your child or your loved one, if you have concerns about your speech or a loved one's memory, by all means, reach out to us at Better Speech.
Fantastic, Lenora. It's just been so great getting to know you. I love what you do. It's so important. And hopefully, the folks out there will take advantage of all the things that you do. And And it is frustrating whenever you try, you need to get help for you or a loved one, and they say a long time wait. So thankfully, they can now seek out one of your board certified clinicians.
Thank you so much for having me and spending time with me, Vicki. It was great getting to know you and to share with you and your audience. So thank you.
Fantastic. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.